We've been talking a lot about tradition lately with my team, and just asking the question, like, what is our purpose for being? What's important about the work that we do? And tradition is wonderful, and you start to ask yourself, well, why is it important? And I think it provides meaning and connection. I think that's kind of where we've landed. If you're passing a recipe from a father to a daughter or from a mother to a son, it provides that connection and meaning, and it's sort of a way of telling stories and talking about the past. So I think that's what I think about now when I think about tradition as far as cooking and recipes, is that connection and meaning that makes life so important. I was just very lucky to have a family that spent a lot of time around the dinner table. My mother grew up in France, and so she brought some of those traditions to our dinner table. We used to joke often that we would spend all Sunday morning cooking a big Sunday lunch, and then sit down and enjoy lunch together with my aunt and uncle and cousins, and the whole time during lunch we were talking about what we were going to make for dinner. So it's just like the quintessential French conversation around the table. You're just talking about your next meal. They definitely had an influence, and I think more so my dad's family, who lived in Stowe. He would take us to see them regularly, once a week. My great-grandmother was just the quintessential Italian-American grandmother, and we would eat dinner at one cousin's house and go over to her house, and she would want to feed us again. And she was offended if you didn't eat. I mean, she would put out all the food and feed us, and almost always send us home with some frozen wedding soup or tomato sauce or meatballs or something that she had made for us. The Swiss Chard Tart recipe is something that I think of when I think about a tradition being passed down between generations. It's just one of the early recipes that I remember learning as a young chef, and it's something that I put on our menu when we opened our first restaurant. It's a really adaptable recipe, so it's nice because you can change it with the seasons and mix in different ingredients, or if you have a preference at home, you can mix in whatever kind of flavor you want into the dish. It's one of those recipes, when I think back on how I got my start and where I started as a young chef, it's one of those recipes that I remember as being kind of a turning point for me. Farmers in Ohio use covers on their crops, and they can extend the season for something like Swiss chard into either the cold winter months. So that's something that I think is really cool about this dish. So sourcing is really important, and we try to buy as close to home as possible. So we're using the Smith's sour cream and the Smith's heavy cream for this recipe, and local eggs, and it's just a really comforting dish that is something that I think is perfect for the fall and the winter time. And it's a recipe that we've made at home, so my kids have been exposed to it. So it's I think there's some storytelling there, and if I get to tell a story around that dish with one of my young chefs that's working in the restaurant, or if I get to tell that story to my kids, I think it's something that they'll remember and they'll want to take with them.